Welcome back to AT&T Cybersecurity video series. My name is Shira Rubinoff, and I'm here with Bindu Sundaresan, Director at AT&T Cybersecurity. Bindu, welcome.
Great. Thank you, Shira, for having me.
Pleasure. Today we're going to talk about vulnerability management. So Bindu, talking about 2021 predictions, most successful attacks will be from well-known and largely preventable attack vectors. Lamentably, this prediction proves itself correct year after year. Can you please talk about how a risk-based vulnerability management approach should be top of mind as organizations continue to digitally transform, and how this approach can make it safer to innovate?
Yeah, that's a great question, Shira. Thank you for that. You bring up a great point, right? Year after year, we've seen sort of the adversaries sort of have a leg up, and cyber crisis, and cyber crime to be, sort of interrelated, right? So crisis fuels cyber crime. And, we seem to be in this never ending battle about, hey, attacks keep happening. I'm not able to patch all of my vulnerabilities, and I keep scanning and I identify more and more vulnerabilities. And what do I do, right? So the key is to take that risk-based approach, because you don't want to be able to just go over all of your vulnerabilities from a severity score, right? So you can't just say, all my high vulnerabilities, I'm going to go take care of it. So if you have two high vulnerabilities, how will you decide, right? You can't just rely on a CVSS score and then say, I've ranked all my vulnerabilities, but then it's not really providing you enough context in terms of a true risk, right? And then, which is why, if you're, let's say, an e-commerce provider versus a healthcare organization, your vulnerability that you identify, if you just base it on high, medium, low, you're not going to be able to prioritize, how do you go about really remediating those vulnerabilities? So the key is, don't just think vulnerability management is scanning and keep scanning and just, do your best in terms of patch management. It has to have a more structured approach, right? So I think, when we talk about risk-based approach to vulnerability management, that is key. Given all of the transformation that has taken place across organizations, large and small, we have more assets now. We have more endpoints to protect. So if you think about it, you don't want to be going about your vulnerability management from a legacy standpoint, right? You have more endpoints now. You have more IoT devices coming into play. You have, folks logging in from home. You want to be able to look at vulnerability management in the context of risk, in the context of threat. So if you identify a vulnerability, ask yourself this question: do you think this has been weaponized? Do you think there is an exploit available for this? So threat intelligence in the context of identifying vulnerabilities and prioritizing them lends itself really well to a risk-based vulnerability management.
I think you touched upon some very important points there, certainly, and taking that deeper dive in is critical, certainly with the ways that you stepped it through. So thank you for that explanation, very important. And we have predictions that ransomware attacks are going to take place every 11 seconds in 2021. That rate of attack will end up costing over $20 billion over the coming year. And ransomware has been a disrupting menace and has plagued organizations for decades. How has incident response playbooks changed during 2020? And what are some tips that you can give us to better prepare us for 2021?
Yeah, so ransomware, definitely been around for a while. And I have to say this, right? Time and again, what we have seen is, when there are transformations that are taking place and there are, strains of malware out there that can really just be tweaked and used again, and it's going to really, generate income, for the malicious actor, what do we do, right? So the first thing is, I think key is to take a cue, take the lessons learned from what has happened in case of ransomware attacks and be prepared for it. So your incident response playbook should have a specific scenario outlined for how you would respond to ransomware. And this is something that is key for every organization. So don't think it won't happen to me, right? Don't think that, okay, I've got it covered because I wrote up a response plan that has that scenario. You have to test it out. I'm, definitely not sort of a, major sports fan, but I will give you the sports analogy there. So let's say you have your play decided. unless you practice that play, in the field, you're not going to be able to have a winning strategy.
So ongoing training.
Yeah,
Training in
definitely, right?
incident response, yes.
Right. And then, exercise your incident response plan, use tabletop testing, really think about the different stakeholders that have to come into play. And, again, a known attack that we know about, you'd be definitely, it's a low hanging fruit if you think about it. We can prepare for it. We can do things to tweak our incident response plan and think about all that has changed for you in the last year. So go back and look at your incident response plan and think about, ransomware as a scenario, and thinking about how it's really going to come into play for your organization. How would you respond to it, and being able to really just sort of preparing to the point of perfection, I would say, right? Like play out the scenarios, think through how your backups look like. Do you have offline backups? Do you are you making sure that you understand the different ransomware attacks that are happening out there, which is now led to things like double extortion, right? So not only are they encrypting your files, they're also leaking it on the dark web, and being able to get money from you, right? So don't just sort of sit back and think, oh, this is an attack that's been happening for a while, there's nothing we can do, right? So when it happens to us, we'll figure it out. I think that mindset is not going to really equip us better for 2021. And why this type of an attack is trending more and more is because at the end of the day, it's the unpreparedness and the volume of the attack and the output that they will get from it is much higher, right? So this we definitely can have a handle. We can reduce the attack surface. We can be prepared by testing your backups, by making sure you educate your end users more and more. Even today, the fact that phishing is that entry point attack vector for most ransomware incidents, we definitely can have a handle on that.
I think those are all critical responses and very important points that you're sharing. And there's been a theme throughout all these interviews that AT&T is really a proponent of, is being proactive as well as reactive. And I believe incident response in the past was, what do you do if it happens? The preparedness is something that I think organizations are stepping up, certainly AT&T, in understanding and making their customers and partners and everybody understand to be proactive in their cybersecurity posture in dealing with this. So thank you, Bindu. Those are terrific and important shares. And I look forward to talking to you again real soon.
Same here.
Thank you.